All right, so this week is all about composition patterns. So what does it mean to actually compose an application? Something that it actually will be consuming more complex data. Okay, so at the end of this module, we have one single module to teach you throughout the whole week. Remember, that's how our weeks are broken down. We have a sprint that is our full week of content that is capped with a sprint challenge at the end of the week. And each sprint is made up of 1 to 4 modules. Okay, so this week we have one module to cover. And so all of these bullet points we're going to go over the course of the next few days. Okay, so it's going to be pretty light in terms of new material. So that provides us the ability to go deep into React, right? And get you more depth on how to use the library to build larger applications, okay? Now, this week, we're not going to be building like a giant large-scale application, but it's going to be much more, it's going to be a lot less trivial than the apps that we built last week, okay? We're going to be combining the ideas of, component architecture with data transfer and state. And how do we manage that state and give that state to our other components? And how do we sort of compose out our application? Okay. So that being said, we're going to be working on the same project for the whole week. Okay. So each day you're going to be taking a little bit more of what you learn each day and applying it to your project. Okay. So you'll notice that there are 3 READMEs in this project. There will be a 4th by the end of the week, or by the time we get to Thursday. So we're kind of breaking it down as to what you're going to focus on. But we're going to be building an Instagram clone. Okay, so the ability to display a bunch of posts, comment on posts, style out your application like a single post. We're going to be doing some like mock login systems that hide our post content until a user is actually logged in. Now, that's not going to be persistent to any server or anything, but it's going to kind of show you how to use some of these patterns that we're going to be demonstrating to you throughout the week. Okay, and it'll expose to you this world of, when do I actually have the ability to see certain content? And then, yeah, you'll be able to comment and see your username, and comment that are on the post. You'll be able to kind of search for a post and filter out other posts and things. So it's going to be really fun. But that seems like a pretty big task, especially with our knowledge of React thus far. Okay, so that's why we've broken each day out into sort of your tasks to focus on for that day. Now, if you don't get to, there is no such thing as like a full-on MVP for this project. It's really just focus on these tasks each day. And then the next day, you'll be able to sort of pick up where you left off. And hopefully, day by day, you get further and further along on the project. Okay? So I'll be showing you how to break this down and how to work with it. We'll take the last 10 minutes of the morning this morning, and I will show you how to get this started. But yeah, everything we do will be sort of leaning towards this idea. So you have a bigger picture, right? You're able to actually kind of step out of what you're building and step out of the technology and the learning and see what it is that you're going to be working on for the whole week. Okay. So that being said, if you were to shift over to Training Kit, the first bullet point is demonstrate the ability to use Create React App and boilerplate a React application. Who knows what that term boilerplate means? What is boilerplating? It's kind of a weird, you'll hear things like boilerplate or bootstrap or catapult. Yeah, it's like the initial code, setup, all the files you may need. People call it bootstrapping, and not to be confused with the Bootstrap library. Okay? So I gave you a little video to watch over the weekend and potentially try and do yourself. If you haven't done that yet, we're going to be doing it today anyway. But I wanted you to make sure that you were familiar with what we're working with, right, before we actually work with it. So we're actually going to follow along this morning. Everything comes from Training Kit that we're going to be doing in this follow along section right here. Initial scaffolding, perfect. And so yeah, if you kind of get a little bit behind, I mean, we're gonna take it step by step, and we're gonna build a React application together, bootstrapping it or boilerplating it with Create React App. Okay. So just before we begin, however, I want to take a poll to see how many. True, false. I watched the pre-class video that Ryan bugged me about so much. Oops. Okay. So go ahead and take that poll real quick. Nice, you got React Strap installed. That's perfect. Yes, it is trivial for sure. Okay, so for the 10 of us who haven't been able to do this yet, this is going to be new to you, but those of us who have been able to do it, and those that watch the video, this will be a walk in the park. So there's two commands that you can run to use Create React App. One, you can run without installing anything on your machine at all, okay? And that's what the best part about npx is it will just simply install a couple of binary files and cache them on your machine. And then anytime you use the Create React App command, npx will go to those binary files and execute the Create React App. Okay, so everyone go ahead and open up your terminal and cd into the directory of your choice. I have a directory called React where I'm going to keep all my React files. And we're going to create an application called Animals that's going to consume a little bit of fun data for us, okay? So go ahead and run npx create React App, okay? And only run npx if you don't have Create React App globally installed. If you have Create React App globally installed, you might as well just use Create React App that you have on your machine. I'm going to use npx because if I don't have to install something, I'm not going to install it. And then make sure you use the command animals. So Create React App is the command that we're going to run. Animals is the project that's going to be, installed, okay? And hit enter and you should see something like this. Now, this is going to vary in speed and length depending on a few things, processing speeds, over network speeds, and things like that. So depending on your bandwidth, I mean, we're downloading thousands and thousands of NPM node modules and stuff just to get this thing running. So imagine having to do this in the early stages of React and having to build your own configuration files and things like that. Okay, so once installed, you should get this message that says yarn start, yarn build, yarn test, yarn eject. It's going to talk about how you can use your new project. But let's make sure that we're all there. Once you're there, cd into animals. Okay, and comment or click a red X on this message if you're not there. And then once you are there, click the red X again so it goes away. So that way when it gets down to 1, we'll get there. Okay? So yeah, I know this may be slow going for some of us, but remember, we're all kind of in this together. We're a team. We're going to be learning these types of things. But I want to make sure that we all do this together this morning to ensure that this afternoon you don't have these headaches. Okay, Youssef, go ahead and on your comment, go ahead and copy and paste your error that you're getting. And once again, once you have installed animals and cd'd into the directory, go ahead and click that red X that shows me that you're done. Right, well, sorry, if you have clicked it and you haven't, so we should start to see the rest of us. Okay, Youssef, that's not a very helpful message. What command did you run? Remember, npx create React app, name of file. Did you say name of the file after? Awesome. So David asked for yarn. Will the add global command do anything before I have the project forked and cloned? So the project that you should never have to fork and clone to create a React application. That's only if you're getting the React application from GitHub. So, and you shouldn't have had to fork and clone create React apps repository either. You should have just had to run yarn global add create React app, and it would have installed it on your machine. Okay. Still have about 10 people who either need to click the red X or haven't quite gotten there. And yeah, I know this is going to be slow going a little bit, but please just bear with me. I want to make sure that everyone has done this before we break for the afternoon, right? We're only going to learn one new thing today and make sure that we're all there, right? So remember, please click the red X if you have clicked it previously and you're not there. Okay, yep, that's going to be fine. Awesome. Robin, you're done. Yeah, Megan, it's going to be slower for some people. Good, good, good. Still linking dependencies. Yep, it's going to be slower for some of us. Don't panic. There you go, Megan. Nailed it. And so Jason posted the origin of where the term boilerplate came from. So newspaper and now information technology slang for unit of writing that can be used over and over again without change. Cool. So in 1893, from literal meaning 1840, metal rolled in large flat plates for using and making steam boilers. Cool. The connecting notion is probably of sturdiness or usability. So yeah, that's actually a really cool definition because it shows us that, we can reuse this command to get us the project the same time or same way every time. Okay, still about 6 of us who haven't clicked the message. I'm going to move on in 1 minute. Who haven't clicked the red X above. The message that I'm talking about is this one. Yeah, so we use Create React App now to actually simplify the processes that we used to have to go through when React first hit the scene. When we first started writing code in React, ES6 hadn't even come out yet. And so we had to, but the features were sort of in the next version of the language. So we had to use things like presets with Babel and Webpack to basically take all of our JavaScript files and bundle them into one single file. And then run Babel over that whole file and transpile it from ES6 to ES5. Now that process actually still happens today, but you used to have to do this manually. You used to have to go and type in and specify your configuration and figure out how you could even start writing React code. We were able to last week start writing React code right inside of our index.html files because the type Babel is available to us now. That wasn't that way before. And the first steps into just learning React was to learn how to even be able to work with React. Now for you, it's so much easier now because, or it's a lot less. It's not. I shouldn't say it's easier to learn React now. You just don't have to learn the setup process anymore, right? Because Facebook saw that this, you know, the world, there were so many people not jumping into React because they're like, I don't want to have to learn 5 different tools just to have the ability to work with it. And so they released this Create React App thing, okay? All right, so inside of our project, since I'm in animals, I can do a little quick ls. We should have a giant README that's going to be pretty descriptive of how to work with React App. Our node modules directory, our package JSON, public, src, and yarn lock. So I'm going to open this up in a code editor, and we're going to take a little tour. We're going to see, and you already actually know this. It's pretty cool because you already know about all these files. You've seen these files already, except test and register service worker. But yeah, this is what's cool. This right here is a React environment. This whole application can be used to get right in the way. So yeah, it's a really good comment by Logan talking about being surprised to learn that Create React App is used professionally and in production. And that's what's really awesome. The last 2 companies that I worked for, I used Create React App at the last company that I worked for to build our application. The first company that I worked for, I was editing my Webpack config every month and changing versions and updating, and it was just a pain. So anyway, yeah, it's really nice. So I CD'd into the project Youssef that we built called Animals. So as soon as you're done with Create React App and everything is everything is installed, you should be able to CD into your project. Okay. So now that we're in Animals, we can take a look at our app.js file and see what's given for us. We are going to build a little thing together. We're going to build a little project together called Animals, okay? And you're going to use this data. Let me change the name of the file real quick to do so. Okay, so the next step is we're going to set up our app to use and consume this data, okay? So I just dropped in Slack a little snippet. So go ahead and open up that snippet on your machine. Okay, so you should see it like this. It should look a lot like this right now in Slack. Go ahead and open up that snippet. And if you click, I don't know if you can click edit, but you should be able to just copy and paste the whole thing. Okay, there's a little JSON object that we're going to play around with today. And we're going to create a file inside of src called animal.data.js. Now I'm going to choose to call it .js and not JSON because we're going to name this array animals and then export the array. Okay? So make sure you take that step now. Yep, absolutely, Jacob. Awesome. Okay, so go ahead and open up that snippet that I posted in Slack, and you'll see Slack will give you sort of the sidebar to work with this. Oops, didn't mean to scroll so much. Scroll to the top and then copy that whole array all the way down to line 50. Okay, once you have that copied, nope, you shouldn't be missing anything, Mark. I have an auto formatter that expanded a couple of my records, so don't worry about it. So once you copy that array from Slack, okay, create a file called animal.data.js. Copy and paste all your information that you just had on your clipboard into that file. name the array animals, and then export the array. This process right now that I'm kind of getting us up to speed with is called data mocking. Sometimes you need to be given large amounts of data to work with. And yeah, Gabriel gave us a great comment. You can also download the file from Slack and drag and drop it into the SRC. That's totally true. It's whatever process you prefer. I already had it downloaded to my machine, so I didn't need to re-download it again. Cool. Let's see, questions, answers, thread. I've lost touch. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so Thomas, I recommend continuously looking under the hood. Always stay curious, right? And then to Logan's point, Webpack is it's a bigger learning curve than React in some ways. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but the syntax is interesting. And if you get one thing wrong, it's hard to like debug. So yeah, Create React app is great. And Logan, if you want to peek under, or Thomas, if you want to peek under the hood, all you have to do is install a Create React app and then run yarn eject, and you can see all of the files that it'll use. I haven't seen much about next.js, but that looks really cool. I've heard of it. I think a lot of people use it in like static site generation, if I'm not mistaken, or like server-side rendering. I'm not sure. Okay, so go ahead and click this message if you haven't been able to get your mock data, animal data installed with the big red X. Okay. All right, looks like most of us are there. So nobody has clicked that. Okay, so once we have animals, we're ready to work inside of our app.js file and consume that data. Remember, it's just an array. So we're going to pull it in. We're going to put it on state in this class component, and then we're going to loop over that array and play around with that data. And that's going to be the whole kit and caboodle. So to get that data included in our app, we need to just simply import animals from animal data. Now we're going to refactor this class component to add some state. Okay. Now I have this animals as a variable up here, and it's on animal data. So let's add it as our animals array. So go ahead and make sure you get there. And in just a minute, we're going to start this project up, which is a process you already know about. And we're going to check to make sure that our animals are on state before we consume them. So remember, steps: import animals from animal data. The file is found in the same directory as SRC. So all we have to do is choose the same directory. That's what the single dot and the / are indicating. Okay. Build your constructor function. Because we're extending, don't forget to call super to link up the properties that this component and app need to share. And then add your state object. Okay. Now I have that same message that's right there that I posted a couple minutes ago. So click the red X if you're not there yet. Again, trying to move a bit slower this morning. Jason, in the true spirit of Father's Day, with an appropriate Monday morning dad joke. If you want to, Jameson, that's the next step, is to run the yarn start. So you can move forward if you want, but just going to make sure that everyone's here and we have our state. So let us know how we can help you if you're not here yet. And remember, as with most of my demonstrations, this is found inside of Training Kit. And at the very end of the demonstration for the objective, you can see a link to our final project and what it should look like in the end. Okay? So now the final step, well, one of the final steps that we're going to take is to open up our terminal and run yarn start. Let's see. So, Nick, it looks like you added an object around that array, which would break the data structure, because objects and arrays are a little different. So make sure that if you imported your animal data, that it's just set equal to the array. Notice how yours, Nick, is set equal to an object that you wrapped around that data. Cool? No problem. Okay, if you got this message when you ran yarn start, let me know on this message right here with a thumbs up. Or, yeah, thumbs up is fine. Running yarn start should do this, or it should give you an error. If you got an error, let us know. It's supposed to say compiled successfully. If it failed to compile, I'll show you how to read that error. So let's say that I had a typo. Okay, failed to compile will tell you, or should start to tell you, where you went wrong. So notice this error. This error message is saying, Brian, you have a syntax error. An unexpected token was found and expected this, right? It's kind of failing us on the message there, but it's saying, hey, we got this weird symbol in this weird place. Where is it going to tell us to look? src animaldata.js on line 77, column 7. Yeah, so Youssef, it looks like you don't have animal data included properly, or you didn't export it. Default misspelled, okay. So this is it, but look at your error message, because this is very important that we all start to learn how to figure out where our error messages are. So let's look at what this is pointing to. It's even telling us in the file, line 77, you have this typo. It's very obvious to me where the typo is. But if I look now in my editor, I can look on line 77, and then my column, notice down in the bottom of my text editor, it's telling me what column I'm on. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's like, oh, something right here is broken down in this next statement. And that would be it. And then notice that we compiled successfully after. Yep, absolutely, Joseph. I'll go there right now. So yeah, it's imperative that we start to remember, or start to really, really dissect and read our error messages. So yeah, Joseph, let me know if there's anything specific you need me to point out here in the app.js file. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Let's see, 31 of us have clicked the message above. Well, 30, I guess, because I count as one on that. So go ahead and click that message if you've been able to successfully start your server. And what should be pulled up if you start your server and you navigate to localhost is a React application. All ready to go, all boilerplated and whatnot. Okay. All right. So let's dive into the dev tools. Make sure if you do not have something that says React in your dev tools when you inspect your element, it's because you didn't do what I wanted you to do last week and you didn't add Chrome DevTools, React's Chrome DevTools to your browser apps. But if everything went accordingly on state, you should have an array of 50 records. And each record should be an animal on the animal's property. Cool? Okay. Now that we have that on state, let's take a look at some other things that are going to get in the way of your project, especially if you're trying to play around with things like codesandbox and whatnot. So this app.test file, we don't need it. You can delete it. Okay? Also, we don't need this logo. So delete it. Inside of app.js, we're now going to have an error that says, hey, you're trying to import a logo that doesn't exist. So delete that line too. And delete where you're defining that logo. Okay, we should be back to normal with no spinning logo. Okay? Replace this line of code with animals to make it our own project. We don't need this register service worker, so we can delete where it's being used. And we can delete the file. Just trimming the fat here. It's our brisket that we're about to smoke. We got to trim the fat. Some of the stuff that we get, we just don't need for this course. And it may get in the way later for you if you try to deploy this to like codesandbox, for example. So I recommend just trimming the fat. Okay? But now that we have data on our state, the last step is to actually iterate over this data and display it to the page, which is something that you know how to do already. So all we have to do is say this.state.animals.map, give me an animal, return paragraph tag, with the species and the name. We'll do name first. And got to solve the problem of unique iterators. Should be an ID on that. And then we should have this beautiful little app that we built. So those last couple of steps, I know I buzzed through them, but they're things that we got familiar with last week, and we really need to kind of move on from this particular portion of today's little walkthrough. Okay? Now, once again, the main reason I wanted us to focus on this first thing this morning is because these are the steps that you're going to take first thing this afternoon when you get your new Instagram project. You're going to go and you're going to fork and clone the repository so you have access to the READMEs, and then you're going to use Create React App to build your Instagram project from scratch. So you want to do all those types of things. And remember, inside a training kit, there's a step-by-step process of everything we just did, like spelled out to a T for you. And then there's this fun little edit on Code Sandbox button that will take you to a Code Sandbox of this exact application. So if I were to open this up, probably want to link to another tab. You'll see that this exact app exists in Code Sandbox already. Okay? Little different because I'm wrapping everything in a div, but all right. And that's really going to be the first part of your afternoon, is just doing this process again. Okay? Making sure you go through the motions. So there is a little challenge for you to take at right after you get back from lunch today, and I'll just pin it to the channel so you have direct access to it quickly. So it'll take you about 10 or 15 minutes to do the same thing you just did on your own, right? But this time you're going to create your own data using Avengers. Okay? All right, now I want to take a 5-minute break. So those who aren't, well, we'll take a 10-minute break, 5 minutes for those who aren't caught up, and then 5 minutes to rest, and we'll get back just roughly at the top of the hour. Okay? Yeah, show app.js. No problem. And then what we'll do after we get back is we're going to go over this cool thing called prop types, how to type check your data in a dynamic world of JavaScript. So let's meet back up roughly at the top of the hour. All right, so we're about, yep. So Joseph, it looks like, yeah, it looks like you solved that problem. So, yeah, if you notice right there, it's just the eonet file error. That type of error is saying, hey, you're trying to use a file that doesn't exist, right? Anytime you see error not, I can't remember what it all stands for. I think Patrick knows. He could probably tell you. Or you could just Google what that abbreviation means, that acronym. So, yeah, a lot of errors, they can be cryptic or they're pretty straightforward. It just really depends, but 99% of the time in a React application that's built using Create React App, you're going to have direct access to the exact error, the exact file that you're going to be working out of, okay? Yeah, my index.js looks exactly like this, where I deleted the service worker mentions from lines 5, and then it was 8 or something, and then I deleted register service worker from SRC. Now, I'm not advocating that you don't ever go back and learn what that register service worker function's doing, because service workers are really cool. Basically, service workers are how like Pinterest loads a bunch of data for you, even if you're offline. So it's really cool what they're able to do. Basically, caching data and information. I don't know how many of us use Pinterest, but it's one of my favorite apps. You'd think, oh, Pinterest, that's so cheesy, but no, like DIY is huge in today's world. Like that, there's so many applications for Pinterest. It's crazy. Like, it's cool. Plus, I have a really good buddy who's working on their engineering. He's an engineering manager over there, so in San Francisco. Cool. Questions, comments, anything you want to know about further in terms of debugging your little application. I'm going to have you take this poll real quick. Just a quick true or false. We'll make it ternary. I want you to answer that question. Okay. Now, once again, in learn.lambda.com, you'll see this very tutorial that we just went through on how to get that all set up with pictures and images and everything. So yeah, I recommend it looks like most of us were able to. Nobody's reported false yet. So cool. Let's forge on ahead and let's learn about prop types, okay? What are these things? What is prop types? Cool. I like the emojis. Okay, so in JavaScript, we have what's called dynamic typing, meaning the data that we pass around in our applications could be whatever we want it to be, and we don't have to specify the data beforehand. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to go to JSBin real quick. I probably could just do this. I'll just do this in VS Code, actually. It's a lot easier to demonstrate. And we'll use Quokka. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to kind of look at a couple of ideas here. Okay. So let's say I have a function. And this, once again, is just, hey, let's observe this real quick. And then I'll tell you if there's a time that we're going to move into you following along this morning. So that function is going to be our data acceptor. It's going to accept all data. Okay. And then we're going to pass some data to that function. Okay. Now, this data is, or this function is very generic, meaning it's just going to accept whatever comes into it and possibly just log out. We'll just log out data for now. Okay. We'll want to do something with that data, but we'll kind of figure it out. Now, because we can use this function to do one thing really, really well over and over and over again, we could use it in many, many contexts. That's one of the patterns that I want you to continue to get familiar with in functional programming, is that you can build a function that does one thing really, really well and reuse that function anywhere in your application, anywhere in your program. Okay? So data acceptor, when we invoke it, is going to take in, let's say, just the number 10. Okay? Or it's going to take in some object or an array. We'll say it's an array of the number 10 as its first property. Look at all these different types of contexts we can pass to this function, right? And then we say item is 10. We could pass another function to data acceptor. See what happens when we do that. Let's just pass an anonymous function here. It returns, the string 10. Have an extra thing. And notice that it's just saying, hey, it's you know where that symbol comes from, right? A lambda function is another term for what we call an anonymous function. Okay? So it's just printing out that symbol, right? Like, oh, that's just a function that, invokes to number 10. Okay? All right, so now that we have this concept in our minds, right? Data acceptor accepts all types of data. This is how the JavaScript language was intentionally designed to basically tell the JavaScript engine that's going to go and read this code, what's called the compiler, to say, hey, data could virtually be anything that the user wants it to be. Now, this is a good thing. It's also a really weird, intricate part of the JavaScript language. It's also a bad thing in some instances, okay? So we're going to talk about that a little bit, okay? The reason that it's bad is because what if data acceptor becomes a function later on? We go back and refactor our code, and we say we want data acceptor to be a function that's going to add up two numbers, okay? Nothing is going to stop us from sending in information to this, right, that isn't numerical. Okay, so what do we have to do? What do we do in that case? So I'm going to say return data, but data is now going to be x and y. We're going to return x plus y. And let's see now as we start to, okay, this function will work, right? This function will also work, right? But it's going to be all funky. And then this is like, whatever. We're just sending multiple variables now, right? We're sending multiple arguments. The next argument we send to this one will be an actual number 100. Cool. And let's actually see let's console.log all of these out. Okay, so in this case, we added some stuff together, and it's all getting a lot more wonky than we expected it to. Notice what we're getting right down here with this function, right? So just by being dynamic, by saying, hey, x and y could be virtually any data type that we want it to be, things could start to get a little bit funky later on down the road, right? Because we're passing it information and nothing is stopping us from doing that. Okay? This is what we call dynamic typing, meaning these variables or these arguments that we're going to send into this function could potentially be any primitive or non-primitive type in JavaScript. Anything that is a type in JavaScript, whether it's a Boolean, object, string, symbol, even the array object or number, string, I think I already said that, it could be sent in. and we're going to get a result that is unintended initially. So what I'm about to teach you in React is a way that we can actually check our data that we're passing around in our application. Because our data that we're going to be passing around in our application is what's most important to the user, right? Usability is a really close second. Well, that's totally my opinion, but I think that the data displayed on the page is one of the most important aspects of any client-side front-end application. Yeah, I'm not sure, Megan. I'll have to talk to Josh if he was able. Actually, he's always just a DM away. Hey, did you ever figure that out? Josh is a cool guy. He may take a minute to get back to you, but he will, I'm sure. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. How do we prevent this from happening? If data acceptor were some fancy component, and we're going to pass this information down as props to that component, right? Because props will be the object that all this information is on, and we're trying to mount something to the screen based on that data. How do we stop the user? How do we stop ourselves from making mistakes like this or like these? Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything they want to speak to in that regard? JavaScript being a dynamically typed language. Does anyone have, by raise of emoji +1 or something, experience using a strict typed language? We're not going to use TypeScript, no. TypeScript and React are nightmarish together. Flow is a little bit more important. Have experience with C++ or Java? Yeah. I don't know if Python is strictly typed. I think it's dynamic. Somebody can quote me, erroneously quote me on that. Yeah, I thought it was dynamic. Yeah, what's fun is Golang can be strict typed or not in certain instances. It's really cool. Some Go has mainly strict types too. Yeah, it's strictly typed, but I think there's other. Okay, maybe not. We won't get into that. But I just wanted to make sure that I was kind of aware if there was an audience here that had a little bit of experience with this. Okay. But yeah, this is one of the best and one of the worst parts of JavaScript is that types can be whatever they want. Now, because of this, there are full-on libraries being built that you can use, or what we call supersets of JavaScript being built to stop this problem. TypeScript and FlowType are really cool. And there is a new JavaScript-esque type language that is built around OCaml called ReasonML, which I'm really interested in looking into in the near future. It's JavaScript-y and typey. Cool. Now, how does this play with React? Well, React used to come with it an object on the React API called prop types. Okay? So prop types was a package that was originally installed and included with React.js. Okay? And you'll notice that if you go and you look at the documentation for prop types, okay? If you look at the documentation for prop types, it's pretty straightforward in its origins and kind of why the package itself exists. Okay, but a question came in really quick, and I want to make sure that it was answered. David asked, so if we can pass anonymous function, what stops a user from passing in their own code as input, potentially ruining our website? Haha, David, you just came up with the fact that you're even asking that question just is blowing my mind, because that's something that is very important to understand. If you have an input field, for example, on your app, user can type in data and they'll see that come back. What if you save a script tag to the database? and then that script tag comes back on the website and it changes everything green, right? Because websites read script tags, and you're going to just post that onto your page in your HTML somewhere. The good news is that React actually sanitizes our input for us, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But what Camry spoke about is called escaping. Escaping is making sure that users don't send in certain types of data and try and store it in our database. People have been known to be able to send an input field with some data to a database that will basically execute a SQL query and dump all of their data for them. What this is called is cross-site scripting attacks. So sending from one site to another, a script tag or whatever. But yeah, it's really good, and it's good to actually talk about this right now because it'll make you aware of these types of things. Garth Mortensen, a friend of our programs, he's on our, he's just a really good friend of the program right now. He actually gave a really cool brown bag discussion about this about a month ago. If you'd like, I can dig out his brown bag presentation on security. But it's one of those things that will teach you a little bit how to defend yourself against or from those types of attacks. Robin said her head is spinning. Okay, Robin, that's good. Yeah, okay, so that little demo that I just gave a minute ago was just simply about like this idea that we can pass anything around and nothing stops us from doing so, okay? Now we're sort of musing and sort of articulating, but the important stuff to get out of today's demo comes from what we're about to go over, okay? And it's this type checking with prop types package. Okay, if you are drawing on my screen, don't. All right, so prop types used to come with React, and it was a package that you could just say, you know, import React, and you'd have prop types right there from React. Now we have to install it separately, okay? So I have my animals application that is consuming pretty sophisticated data, nothing super fancy, right? It's just an array of objects, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to include the prop types package so that we can use it to check the data that we're going to send down to another component in our component tree. Okay, so I'm going to make an animals component and pass this information to animals and then do this logic inside of animals. But before I do that, I'm going to install the prop types package. I'm going to open up my package JSON so you can see this happen in real time. But if I were to go and actually run yarn add prop, and notice that it's the prop kebab case types package. Okay, and that's built by Facebook. It was extracted from the React ecosystem. And so it's up on NPM now, and we can use it to install this awesome type checker package for us. Okay, questions and answers thread, had to make sure. Okay, so now if you look at my package JSON, we're going to see that it's a little different in that it includes prop types for us. Cool. So remember, prop types comes from NPM. If you look at the library itself, it's pretty straightforward, and here's the API on how to use it, but we'll get there in just a second. Let's see. This is the NPM package. It'll teach you how to use it, how to install it, how to import it, and all that fun stuff. Okay? Got to get this out of here for a second. Okay, cool. So now what the prop types package does essentially is it allows us to develop our code and think about our data beforehand, which is going to be one of the steps that you're going to have to take in your afternoon project. You're going to have to physically sit down and think about the data that you're going to be using to build your Instagram posts. Yeah, so Robin, if you click on the reactjs.org docs type checking with prop types URL I posted above, it's in that first paragraph. Let me open it up and show you. Open it up 3 times. It's in this first little paragraph right here. And if you click right there, it'll take you to the NPM docs. Cool. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to build out our animal function or animal component, and we're going to send this information down to animals, which is then going to produce an array or a new component of animals. Okay, and I want you to just watch me do this, and then what I'll do is let's do it. Let's do it in codesandbox. Let's do it right now. I forked this project earlier, so now that it's here, let's do it here. Okay, because this was requested during the Q&A on Friday that we start using this cool tool. So for those of you who want to follow along with the code that I'm about to type, you can jump right in. But I'm not going to allow you to edit it. Look, you're all joining my session. So now you don't have to necessarily watch Zoom to follow along. You can just simply watch me do this inside of this project. And then I'll give you the project at the end, and you can go back and play around with it. So I'm pretty sure, I'm going to close the classroom. Not going to enable chat. So hopefully I have the bandwidth and I don't start lagging. I'm going to kill off a couple of other practices here. Oh no, I didn't mean to do that. Did it just open? Did it just close the Zoom for you guys? Or close the code sandbox? I wonder if this is going to be performant or not. So this was the fork. Live session. Keeps drawing on my screen. So we played around with this for like 2 minutes on Friday. So if it doesn't work, it just won't work. And I'm fine with that. We can go back to VS Code. Going live. Okay. Now, cool. Okay. All right, so I need to install, just like I would npm install, I need to add the dependency right here, prop types. So this code sandbox is going to mimic that npm install or the yarn add we just did, and it'll allow you to just simply add dependencies. So if you wanted to go and add like React Bootstrap or React Strap or whatever to your project, you could click add dependency. You could virtually do all of your work right here inside of Code Sandbox if you wanted. It's really cool. It allows you to really stretch the abilities of the particular package itself. Okay. Did I not send the new link, Tyson? I thought I did. I thought I saw everyone joining. Cool. Okay. So we're going to experiment with this today. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll continue with Zoom and all of the fun things. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a new component, and we're going to make that component take in our animal data from app as props, and then it is going to iterate over that animal data, and it's going to then display an animal for each item in the array. Okay. And that's going to be its own component as well. So we need two new files. We need an animals.js file, and we need an animal.js file. Okay. Both of them will need React. Both of them will be stateless functional components. Okay. And both of them will need to receive props. Remember, props is going to be an object because React feeds it as an object, but our properties on that object could be whatever they want to be. It's part of the dynamic typing process. Okay. Got to import animal. And animals actually needs to iterate, right? We forgot about that part. Now each animal needs to be set up with a key of animal.id. And we're going to say this data is our animal. Sorry about the confusion. I just forgot where I was at in my head. Okay. And this needs to be closed off. Okay, so animals should look like this now, where it's taking in an animal and displaying each object on the animals array as an animal component, which is going to take in it's just going to be a div. We'll just do this for now. And we'll say name equals props.animal.name. And we got to export the default. Okay. So now here's where things start to kind of come together, and where we're going to talk about prop types. Because if I were to take a look at this, and change my app.js so that it just takes in animals, and that's going to be animals data. We should still have animals is not defined. There we go. Cool. So our little logger is printing off all of our objects, right? So this is the shape of the data that we expect it to be. So what is the data type of each object at ID? What type of data is that? an int, or in JavaScript commonly known as a number. Okay. Then what types are name and species? Strings. So we're going to check for that because I'm expecting this data to look like this, right? It's not really imperative that my ID is a number, but it's pretty imperative that name and species are a string. My app won't break if it's not, but there could be a potential place in time where it could, if I am expecting name, for example, to be an object, right? Because if the shape of this data changes, then what's going to change here, right? We're going to try and reference it in this way, and it's going to break. It's not going to do the thing that we're expecting it to do. So that's the idea here. We're going to prevent bugs before they even happen. Developers in JavaScript love to stop themselves from the pain that they themselves will put themselves in later on down the road. Yeah, Ty, it's almost exactly like we're going to be using type of. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if prop types doesn't use a type checking with type of under the hood. So virtually what you could do is you could basically build this prop types system using type of, right? Little functions that take in this information and return out the data. But notice that their API does something really nice for us. It allows us to chain on a prop camel case types property to our component, class or function component, it doesn't matter, and say, hey, we're going to store this information on this object. Now, this object is going to say, hey, whatever the property is that's associated with this thing, we need it to be a string, okay? And their API is so rich that it will allow you to use array, Boolean, function, number, object, string, or symbol. There's also a node type. Cool. There's a couple of other things, but we're not going to get to those primarily today. But there's the main things to focus on are the primary types here and then a couple of other settings. Okay? So we rely on this data to be pretty much, we're expecting it to be a string. What if it's not a string? Well, we'll figure out what happens. And now I'm trying to figure out, yeah, it'll be easy, okay? Okay. So what I want to check here is I want to say, or what I want to type here is I want to import prop types. Notice that it's Pascal case now from prop types package, which we installed in our dependency tree. So it's already in our node modules, so to speak. Dependencies inside of codesandbox is synonymous with node modules inside of your own machine. Okay? So we're now going to say that we're going to say, just following this syntax, greeting dot whatever, we're going to say class dot prop types equals this object. Okay? So our class name is animal dot prop types. Notice now that we're camel case. So this is probably one of the biggest things that trips learners to prop types library up, is all of the 3 different types of simple naming convention that you have to jump around, right? But there are 3 different things. One is the sort of constructor that we're going to build off of. The other is the name of the package. And the other is the property that we're going to chain on to our component. Okay? So here goes. We're going to expect that animal is going to be an object. Okay? Because every single one of these is going to receive a single object. So we're going to say prop types dot shape, which is a function that can take an object to define the properties that are on this object here. Remember, in our console, we can see that we have ID, name, and species. So the shape of this object is this object that we pass to shape. I'll say it again. The shape of this object right here, when we're checking an object, will be this object that we pass to shape. Okay? All right. So how we're going to do that now is we're just going to say ID, and we'll set it equal to prop types dot number. Name, prop types dot string. It's got to be lowercase. Sorry, that's my back end days coming through. Species, prop types dot species. Okay, great. Let's get rid of this console log. Let's see what we've effectively done. We have sort of stopped ourselves from making any mistake that we could potentially make in the future. Because what if I went to animals data and I changed all my IDs it's not going to work. Okay, what I'll do is format the first 9. Okay. Then I'll format the other. Oh no, there's IDs in there too. Dang it. Okay, give me a sec. So I'm changing my data now. Let's say that the back end went and said all IDs are going to be strings. Dang it. Oh well. Gotta do that again. Bear with me. The example is going to shine through in just 1 second. Cool. Uh-oh. What is this beautiful little warning message that we get now? Warning. Failed prop type. Animal.id of type string supplied to animal. However, you bozo, that should be in there to insult the developer. We expected a number. Okay? So this is what's so cool about this. Before this information goes live, we just saw this warning. And we were able to stop ourselves from making a mistake. Because we're expecting very well that that number, that ID is a number itself. Let's go back here and take a look. No! Did that just kill the live session? Gosh dang it. Internal server error now. Nice. Go get a refresh. Are people digging the live session? Is it nice? I guess I can take a survey at the end. Still up? Okay. It's kind of nice to just be right there in my code while it's on your screen as well. So it was a good suggestion by one of your peers. Okay. Let's go back to our demo. Now we know that ID is supposed to be a string instead of a number. Okay, so we could go back and change it, and guess what? The console is going to go and clear that message. So it's very important to understand this prop types. Now, people are probably thinking to themselves, if you're like me and curious as to how this affects your code, well, what's cool is that even though we're chaining this property onto all of our objects that we're building in React, when this code goes to production, when you build your React application to production, okay, it will actually go and automatically remove all of the prop types that are in your files. So React knows, it says, hey, Ryan built an app and he's trying to push it to production. So we're bundling up the application for optimization and performance and name spacing and things like that. And there's this prop type stuff found in his application. React will say, well, we don't need it for production. So we're going to remove it. Out of the box, you get that functionality. So this is a really cool tool that you can use to think about your data even before you begin building your app. And what it will do is it'll solve any issues that you may encounter in the future if you start to change the shape of your data that you're working with. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about prop types? It virtually is this simple. You're going to be a little bit confused about other patterns. Shouldn't the prop type be written before declaring our classes? What do you mean? If I'm declaring, what do you mean? Because this is where we're specifying the prop types. Why does it go after export? Normally good catch. Normally the last thing you want in your file will typically be the default, right? The export. But when we're using things like prop types, we do them outside of our functions, outside of our classes, okay? Because we're selecting the class that's defined in this file. Cool? Nice catch, Jennifer. So what's the difference between prop types.string and prop types.species? Oh my gosh. The difference is that was a huge typo, and I'm surprised nobody stopped me. Sorry. Oh my goodness, you're probably like, wait, species is a type? Where is it? Probably scouring documentation, furrowing your brow, sweating, all because I got a typo in my app. 50 points from Slytherin. Sorry about that, guys. No, from Slytherin. You get 50 points for Gryffindor. I'm Slytherin. I was given 50 points or taken away, so. Yeah. Otherwise, Mark, we regress, right? We digress. So, okay, Huffleclaw, nice. Yeah, Jennifer, it is going to drive you crazy. It's just something you have to start getting familiar with and thinking to yourself, what is it that you're referencing? If you're referencing the prop types API, meaning there's a dot after it, it's going to have to be Pascal. If you're referencing the property that you're chaining on to your class object or your constructor, right? Your component, then it's going to have to be camel case. If it's the library itself, it's kebab case. Okay, so what I want everyone to do who's currently in this session, which seems to be a lot of us, is I want you to fork this project. Oh wait, I'm going to delete this first. And I want you to go back. I'm going to edit the file too, so don't fork it yet. Go back. Dang it. Had to do that. Awesome. Okay, go back into animal and try and achieve this on your own. So now you can fork it and play around with it. And what I'll do is I'll leave the shape definition up for you. Where's shape? There. Optional object with shape. And then I have one more little demo to show us. So just take 2 or 3 minutes to check your data on animal, okay? We'll give you 2 minutes to do it. Sorry about that. Don't fork it yet. It won't let you back in the session. Does somebody have a link? Yeah, there should be a new link up there for Joseph. This link right here. You should be able to. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, uppercase camel case is Pascal case. Just have 1 minute left to try and check your data. We kind of got out of our questions and answers thread today. Many apologies. It's probably my fault. Okay. So yeah, just so that you have a working copy of what should be checked, this should be a number. Now that's saved back to my version, so you can go back and compare a little bit later. So there's one last thing that we need to kind of cover with prop types. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk us through how to get our project rolling for the afternoon. Okay. So the one thing that's really cool is that you can require certain types of data to be there. Right now, all of this stuff is optional. In fact, we're not even using species in this div, so it's totally optional. We're not using ID as well, but it's going to be on that object, right? So we can do things to require that, to make sure that name is actually being used, because our application will break if an object found on our animals array does not have a name property on it. Let's prove that. If I go to animal data and I delete a name property, a single name property, our entire application, if it refreshes, or actually it'll just be undefined. That's what's going to happen. But let's see what happens. It won't break. Let me see where's my little show browser. It's like down in the corner here somewhere. I can't get back to it. But what's going to happen is this value is going to be undefined, so this div is going to print an empty string. So what if the backend developer goes and changes everything from name to like animal name? Okay. Well, you need in development, you need to be able to see that that has changed. So what you can do is you can actually type an isRequired flag on animal or on the property. And notice since I went and deleted that one, we get a prop type warning when that thing is not passed to our component. So one of the records is broken, saying animal.name is marked as required in animal, but its value is undefined. And what this does is it allows you to really think about your data a step further. What are the minimum requirements for this component to work? For this component to work, the only thing that's actually required that we're actually using is the name prop on the animal object. We might be able to, but no, in this case, it doesn't look like it's going to give us, but it's going to say, hey, this is going to say check the shape of your data. You probably have a typo somewhere, right? So it's still helpful. It's not as helpful as per se when your project goes to compile and then it stops compiling. Yeah, so that was in response to the question that Alec asked, can you determine which record is broken using the warning message? In this case, you can't. It doesn't look like you can, at least. So there may be instances where you're freaking out because something broke. But I promise you this will make you a better and stronger developer because it forces you to think about your data before you're even, sending your project to production or whatever. So I want you to use this process when you're building out your application this week. When you're building the Instagram clone, what things are required? What is the type of my data for this specific component? And you want to do it down at the level where it's granulated to at least just a single object, right? I don't care that the shape of animals is an array, but you could make it work. Because I could say animals.proptypes equals an array of animals data needs to be prop types dot array of, and then you could specify objects. I just had to think about it, guys. It's not easy. Okay, so let's go back to the API and let's see what they give us for that. Array of, and then it says this, so we could just do a shape right there. So in this case, it's really not the most useful because we'd have to shape it anyway. But that's something you could definitely do. Maybe it's an array of strings, or maybe it's an array of numbers, but array of object is not that useful because I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking, oh, well, we're already checking the shape of the object down the most granular level. Does this integrate into unit testing somehow? It's another step. Unit testing, especially React components, goes hand in hand with what we're trying to accomplish here. But you won't have to write as many tests because you are secure with your data going into your components, right? Being passed around, okay? All right, use prop types. You have the forked copy of this. If you don't, I can get you the URL. And you can play around with the animals and check your props data, okay? Now, shifting gears, what are we doing this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon and Wednesday, Thursday, possibly Friday if you want to keep working on it? We're building this Instagram clone, okay? So let me walk you through what you're given in this project. And we're going to focus on, I don't want it to be that big. Just zoom in a little. Okay. So the purpose of this project is to continue building on your knowledge of React that you have gained thus far. Here you'll be implementing a lot of the same concepts that you've been in previous projects in a very similar fashion. Okay? Things like component architecture. These are decisions that we have sort of made the way, made for you. But how you go about designing your components and thinking about things, you're going to have to decide. So the main difference this time around is you're going to be using Create React App to generate your React project for you. Don't worry about all the extra files that you may not understand, which will be present inside of your React application that you build with CRA. The overall structure of the project remains exactly the same as you would as you worked on with the to-do project, right? So build your components directory, put your container components directories inside of that, okay? It's going to look a lot like this. Components inside comment section, post container, search bar. Those are all directories where you're going to put the components that you want inside together with those directories, okay? So there's a whole list of information on how to get the project set up, but you're going to be working on this throughout each week. Each day as you learn new things, you'll learn that knowledge to build and enhance this project a little more. So today, you're going to be using Create React App and prop types to actually get the project off the ground and start building your components. Yep, the components should be inside of the SRC folder. Was it not? Oh, yes. Shoot. Thank you. Components should be inside SRC. I'm so sorry. All right. Dang it. I got to go delete that data. If you already forked and cloned this, you're going to have that's just the fastest fix that I have. So if you already forked and cloned this and you want that edit, I can teach you how to pull down that edit. Cool. All right. But you want to learn that before you submit a pull request, so just reach out to me and I can show you how to do that. You're going to have to do it anyway later on this week, that process. So yeah, if you already forked and cloned it before I started talking about it, it's my bad. I foobarred that. That's why you don't work until 11 p.m. on a Sunday night and then wake up at 6:30 to work on a Monday morning to make sure everything's ironed out, because there'll be mistakes. Okay. Okay, so the goal is to finish each day's objectives and have a working project to start with on the next day. If you don't get the daily objectives, don't panic. Some days will be easier for you than others. Some days will be harder. So just let the ebb and flow just kind of work itself out. We don't care if you're still working on, day 3 stuff on Friday afternoon, start of the afternoon, right? Or day 1 stuff starting Tuesday. You should progress each day though, okay? If that's not happening, reach out, let us know. By the end of the week, the hope is that you'll have seen a React application go from start to completion, right? And with sophisticated amounts of information, right? More components, more styles, more functionality. How do I manage state, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? It says simple Instagram clone, but it's not really that simple. And then, yeah, here are your projects set up. You'll be able to just go right in and either follow the CRA command without NPX or with it. Just depends on what you like. Here, create some components directory inside of SRC, then create a subdirectory called search bar, post container, and comment section. Okay, so if I was going to do this in just a couple of minutes, I would fork and clone this project. Let's pretend that I just forked it. Clone. And then npx create React app Instagram. Cool. Let it do its thing. Okay, now I'm going to see, well, now I'll just do a code just to pull it all up. And notice that inside of here, I created an Instagram project from scratch using React app. Now in here, I'm going to make dir inside of src called components. Okay, then I'm going to make dir insta src components, and I'm going to call it search bar. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. Comment section. And the last but not least will be, what was it called? Somebody remind me. Post container, right? Okay, let's go look at the shape of my object, or the shape of my project. So now inside of src, I have a components directory, and it has a bunch of subdirectories. Okay. Now I'm going to make sure that I have prop types installed. Whoops, I got to cd into Instagram first. And then any other packages that I'll need, I want to make sure that I'm inside of Instagram before I run yarn add or whatever. Okay? After that, it's pretty much everything you've already been doing. So reach out to your PM if you need help. I would highly recommend pairing up on this project. There's a lot of stuff that two minds will be better at than a single mind, okay? At least for a day or two, and then merge out on your own or something. But yeah, try and pair up. Work with each other. It's completely your prerogative. All right, gang, thank you so much for hanging out. Go to lunch. Make sure that you get some good breaks. Come back, work on that little thing that I pinned to the channel. Let me grab it. And then jump right in, unless anyone has any questions before they go to lunch. This is the little challenge that you'll want to try. Yeah, if you pulled before lunch, you can stick around and I can show you what to do. Okay, it's kind of a cool process. Okay. So I'm going to delete this information and stop recording. And I'll share my screen again. Okay, so, all right, if you've cloned before lunch, you need to, or before I made the edits, you'll need to check your remote. Okay, you should have something that looks like this, where the origin is set to your fork. So go ahead and run a git remote -v for me, and then paste your snippet in Slack. Oh, your upstream is already pointing to React InstaClone. Okay, so that's great. You already have your upstream. So for you, Ahmed, all you need to do is run a git pull upstream master. Try that. And that's going to pull down the changes from the Lambda School Instagram clone master branch. Yeah, but so Jameson, the challenge will only take you like 5-10 minutes. And it's just to make sure that you get extra repetition. So Ahmed, what happened when you pulled? Did you get a message? Yep, now all you need to do is just escape that. So if I am in, let's see, yep, just run shift colon okay, and then and then write WQ and then hit enter. Ahmed. For Mark, let me see what Mark's is telling me. Yeah, so for you, Mark, it does not look like you have it does not look like you have the upstream set. So what does yours say, Mark? When you run git remote -v. What Patrick is saying will help you out, Ahmed. There you go. You got the new changes. So you should be good to go, Ahmed. You have the new changes now. Basically just wrote them into your remote. But I need to know, Mark, I need to know what your git remote -v says. Patrick's answering. Okay, so for you, Mark, we need to set your upstream. Okay, so you need to go. I don't think he realizes we're in a demo right now. So you need to go to the GitHub repository that is found as the Instagram clone. Okay, and then click on without forking or anything. Remember, this has to be from Lambda School React Instaclone. Okay. Then you're just going to copy and paste the URL. So just in case you need it, it's right there. Go into your terminal and write git remote add upstream and then post the URL. Do that command. And then run git remote -v. And you should see upstream that's pointing to our branch. There we go. So now if you look at yours, it says origin is pointing to your fork and upstream is pointing to master. So now git pull. Patrick's going to try and do the command first. Git pull upstream master should pull in those changes. And it might put you into Vim mode. Cool. All right. Okay, gang. Those who stuck around, didn't drop off like flies, have a great lunch. We'll see you again tomorrow.